what we usually do is people are asked to read like a subchapter. If they, if they want to pass, they're freely welcome to do that. And as we read, if anybody has anything to chime in with, any reflections on, or any questions to ask, feel free. And many of you have been to Darwin's meetings up in Schenectady, and also the discourse meetings down here. And one one thing that I once asked Darwin, what is the biggest mistake the Baba lovers are making? And he said, and he didn't respond critically, but he said, they think of themselves as small and they remain small. Think big. Basically, he was saying, even outside the spiritual box, the spiritual tradition, what we have with Baba is something greater than that. And I know Mani would say, the fruit is on the trees, loot it. Don't, be shy about, just load your basket. Some of it is even on the ground. You don't even have to reach up into the trees. No unworthiness. She said, worthiness, schmurthiness. Go for it, And Darwin was very good about keeping that, no barriers between him and Baba. He was very free about that. And of course, a lot of people who have had a religious tradition, there's always a concern about disapproving God's disapproval. Well, Baba is quite different from that, But anyway, so let's start on the veil making machine, chapter 4. And really feel free. A lot of you have been with Darwin, and you may remember certain things that he said, and it would be wonderful if you share those.
I want to say something on what Jeff said, that Darwin said about being, we make ourselves bigger. We're tapping into Baba's infiniteness, but it's also not to see ourselves small, but not to see other people small. I just want to bring that in. Okay.
Yeah, he was very good about not projecting smallness on others.
Anyone, not even animals, Yeah. Okay, our veil, this is chapter 4, our veil making machine. Limitation comes into existence owing to ego-centered desires and self-will. Possessiveness in all its forms leads to a life of limitation. Mayor Baba. We are always surrounded by a luminous sea, a sea of light, of love, of bliss. The unity underlying all personalities and all things in the universe is God. God is in everything, and everything is God. No matter what we think we are seeking or what our sanskaras, our conditioned impressions impel us to seek. We are really seeking to merge with this luminous, all-pervading sea of God and to experience eternal, abiding fulfillment. In other words, what we are really seeking is the happiness of union with God.
Any comments from anybody? I know the beautiful thing is that Darwin actually experienced these things. He's not just parroting Baba's teachings, but he had experiences of this type. So it has a certain authority to it, of experience. But any comments, any reflections?
Jeff, speaking of smallness, I think in addition to making ourselves and others small, we make God small.
Exactly. Yep. We project the limitations of God on, of human limitations onto Baba. Yeah, exactly. But well, what a beautiful thing to be surrounded by a luminous sea of light. That's where we are sitting right now, even though we aren't aware of it. Okay. Total loss is gain.
Total loss is gain. Our illusory life is a vacant dream. And Meher Baba has explained that drawing closer to God is the only endeavor that has real value. The general consensus, however, is that happiness lies in fulfilling our desires and in accentuating the self through possessions and achievements, regardless of the fact that this only creates more desires, more entanglements, and more bondage. On the involutionary path, the spiritual path, we undergo a refining, awakening process in which we discard elements of the self and sublimate all of our energies so that they can be used to fuel our love for God and propel the self toward Him. Therefore, spiritual advancement is not further development of consciousness, a process of acquiring something, or an achievement for the ego. Spiritual advancement is emancipation from the bondage of sanskaras. It involves disentangling oneself from the false, and importantly, inviting the real into our being, opening to the truth within. This is in contrast to the psychological work of trying to get rid of our painful samskaric patterns in order to create a pleasant existence in illusion. In other words, trying perhaps unwittingly to harmonize with our samskaras. I believe that as spiritual aspirants, our concentration should be on loving God and merging with Him. And the predominant process we are engaged in is not self-realization, but complete self-effacement, which is both total annihilation and complete merging of the personality self into God.
Any comments from anybody? Any questions or reflections? Anything?
Kathy Fitch?
Yes. Oh, do I have to unmute myself?
No, I got you.
Good.
Oh, okay. When I hear this, and I noticed it in another book, it's like if we make ourselves big, you know, I must be missing something, because if we make ourselves big as we are, you know, and we're supposed to be self-effacing, there's a gap there for me, so it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, that's one of those paradoxes that can be understood experientially. How can you be effaced and still be, well, say by being effaced, you kind of imbibe some of the vastness of the divine. The emptiness is filled with that fullness. So, yeah, you inherit a fullness by emptying your warehouse of all of this debris. I don't know if that makes sense. But
so we get bigger in a very different way.
Yeah, very different way.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. That helps.
Yeah, there's a timeless, spacious experience you get when you become empty. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Chitra, go ahead.
At the end of the second paragraph where it says, this is in contrast to the psychological work of trying to get rid of our painful sanskaric patterns in order to create a pleasant existence in illusion, you know, to harmonize with our sanskaras. Wow, that's a tough one, because that's what we do. I mean, we try to look in ourselves and say, okay, I'm working on this part of myself, and You know, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's a
I don't know what
very
else to say.
no, it's a very very deep insight
Yeah.
into kind of what we get caught up in is psychologically freeing ourselves, you know, but not necessarily moving closer to Baba. You know, no, that's a very valuable point that he made there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
On the other hand,
yeah, go ahead.
May I speak? It's Dartha. On the
Yeah.
other hand, Darwin says at some point, the effort part is for you to get rid of the barriers to going deeper. So
Exactly.
how does that work in with it?
No, that's beautiful what you said. The effort is not psychologically bring yourself up. It's working at whatever separates you from the embrace of Baba, you might say, of drawing closer. Someone's got their hand on there. Tom and Dartha, are you still there?
Yeah, we're here.
Oh, there you are. Yeah. But yeah, that's a different type of work. You know, I mean, it's psychological, but you're creating, you're getting rid of the veils between you and Baba's loving arms. And you may have a lot of psychological problems that would take forever to get over. Stage fright, need for achievement, nervousness, whatever. Those would take forever, but we don't have to resolve all those things. We can just try to draw closer to removing those veils between us and Baba, not us and worldly attainments or achievements. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. But anybody, I'm talking here, but any of you can chime in.
There's a lot of people with hands up. Heidi, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to say that, you know, it's completely amazingly powerful to realize that we are working in our lives to harmonize with our sanskaras. It's how we manage life. But if you look at the sentence before that, it says that our whole being really is inviting the real into our being, opening to the truth within. And I want to mention that I know that Darwin also had a love for Christian metaphysics. And I always find some integration with that because I like to play and read. I have a lot of books. And there's a book that I used to take out at the center. I took it out in 1975, I found it. And it was called, from the library, called In Tune with the Infinite by Ralph Waldo Emerson. And he talks about this very thing. And I fell in love with the book, and I think I convinced one of the caretakers to take me to the library so I could Xerox it because there was only one copy, a nickel at a time. And I had the book. And every time I went to the center, I thought, oh, I want to see who else took this book out. No one, from 1975 until they took it out of the library. And I'm mentioning it to all you to just play with it a little bit. You might like it because in a similar way to Darwin, but in a fun way, he talks about being in tune with the infinite every day. And every time I connect with that, but of course, Baba hops up. And I don't know why from that angle, it feels I'm right in tune with Baba, but for some reason for me, it does. But you might enjoy it. But
what's the title? In Tune with the
it's
Infinite?
Called In Tune with the Infinite by Ralph Waldo Emerson. And there was a piece of metaphysical book.
Maybe you can put it in the chat box.
Oh, sure. I will learn how to do it and do it at the same time. I will. And you might enjoy it because he wrote a number of other books, but this one really has some practical day-to-day ways to stay in tune with the infinite while we're struggling to harmonize with our sanskaras that we really don't want to do anyway. So I think that Darwin knows about it. I just have an instinct about it. Anyway, I thought I'd mention it. And thank you. I'll put it in the chat box.
Yeah.
Adrian, you had your hand up?
Hi, everybody. Hi, Paul. Hi. I'm thinking about this section in discourses about the difference between. Oh, sorry, I lost my train of thought. What was it? Oh, yeah, the inferiority complex versus the superiority complex, and like I think I know for myself, I get really anxious about being confident in myself or being arrogant. You know, it's like I think a lot of Bible lovers probably from our lifetimes of like being megalomaniacs and dictators and stuff like are freaked out about being big, you know, and in my mind, I think, you know, somebody mentioned like, what is the difference between being big and like being big with Baba? You know, it's like, I think what I'm working on is trying to find that center point that isn't inferior, that it isn't I suck and it isn't I'm the best. It's like I'm Baba and all of this is Baba and everyone else is Baba and Baba is infinite. Therefore I'm infinite. And that mentality is I think the healing or the washing away of a lot of the thoughts that are motivated by our sanskaras that, you know, tell us that we're not infinite, that we're not God, that we're actually like these little, you know, little brats, or we're these jerks, or we're these sucky people, or we're the best person that ever existed, or we're way better than everyone else. Those are just like these ping pong, it's like this ping pong ego trip thing. And this really it's very challenging for me to like just settle into, oh, right, everything is Baba. Like everyone is Baba. I'm love. Therefore, it like I can't be an asshole. Pardon my language. If I'm Baba, like I'm as much of an asshole as Baba. And is Baba an asshole? I don't think so. You know, so that's the thing that I work on. That this brings up for me.
Yeah. Yeah, Darwin used to say with this enigmatic smile on his face, sooner or later, you discover you're nobody, and that is not an unhappy discovery. And Francis Brabazon described the Mandali as exalted to dust. You know, they became servants of the universe, servants of everything for Baba's sake. So that being a servant, it's hard to be arrogant when you're here to serve others, you know. And Darwin was certainly, in the Mandali, we're certainly doing that, you know. But good, that's a challenge, you know. Inferiority, superiority complex, that pendulum. Yeah.
Paul Fusco had his hand up.
Yeah. So Darwin, two things. Darwin, wow, Jeff, I just gave you a great compliment. I called you Darwin. So two things. You know, listening to everybody about be big and Darwin, you know, be big. But what came to me was which self will be big, right? Yeah. So if it's going to be our limited ego self, well, no, right? But if we use love as our compass and listen to the language of the heart, think about all that can be accomplished. It's actually infinite. And that's the infinite self that we can make really big. That's one thing that came to me. The other thing that I would ask you if you could elaborate a little bit on the line that says, let me get my glasses here. We discard elements of the self and sublimate all of our energies so that they can be used to fuel our love for God and propel the self toward Him. Can you elaborate a little bit, Jeff, on sublimating our energies and what Darwin might have said about, you know, how to...
Well, the kind of the process is that we're moving from the lower values of selfishness to the higher values of Baba's love. And that's a whole process, you know, I mean, a very slow process of sublimating, impatience into patience, stinginess into generosity. I mean, it's a whole movement that's happening as we move closer to Baba. All of those lower values are being transmuted into the higher values.
And does that take place, Jeff, like you said last week? Remember when we talked about making that space, allowing to have space inside? Is that where that sublimation takes place, as we take the sanskaric events and then let that space happen, and the sublimation then comes in?
Yeah, very good. Yeah, it's like, as other people who are just joining, Darwin used to talk about creating inner space, which is a space between your awareness and your conditioning, your personality self. And the personality self may be living at a lower level of values, but in that space, you get love, and the higher values come in through that inner space, so that you wind up doing the loving thing, even though your sanskars are telling you to do something quite different. So it's that creating that space enables you to be able to choose love and not just be impelled by your sanskars. Does that make sense?
Thank you, Jeff.
But I know Eric once said to me, Jeff, the accumulation of virtue is not the goal. So we have to go to love, which is different from virtue. And that's a whole different topic. We'll move on.
So Elizabeth, go ahead.
So I think it's wonderful if people know how to merge into this fullness, but I think I even have a problem with the step that comes before that, which is the wanting to do that because of a fear of losing who you are, which of course is what we're supposed to do, but still, the idea of going into something that's nothing of who I am, I think that's kind of fearful, but maybe I'm just too far back on the path.
Well, I mean, I think you're uncovering your loving self more and more. So it doesn't have to be fearful. You're opening up and awakening to the loving side of yourself. Mm-hmm. Rather than, we were kind of scared with Darwin because we thought if we give all this up, it's going to become a void. Mm-hmm. And Darwin said, no, there's a fullness behind. We're moving toward the fullness of love. So yeah. But anyway, anybody else has things to say? I'm chiming in here, but other people, you may be able to answer these questions better than I'm doing.
We've got a number of hands up, so I'll take them in order unless somebody can indicate otherwise. Patty, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm really appreciating all of this conversation, and the comments that I'd like to offer up at this moment is we're opening to the source, which is love. We are love. And I don't remember the gentleman's name, but he was talking to Jeff about this. If we give curiosity and welcoming to what we are, which is what is driving us back to us, it's back to the source. So, I mean, I was the harmonize with yourself unwittingly. We don't do, I don't think we do any of this. We just have to remove the resistance to dissolving the identified personality, the wave that popped up from the ocean saying, I'm the wave. The ocean is propelling all these waves. I don't think it is my understanding that I really can't. If I identify Patty and think Patty's going to move herself there, that's a joke. That to me is the joke. So the process Patty I, is really just to keep focusing on the love, focusing on the source of what this I'm identifying as Patty, but it really isn't Patty. None of us. We're all having the conversation. God's having this conversation as all of us right now. Or love is, so I see the I Patty, the personality Patty comes up against the desire to dissolve or think I can have any act in it. The only act I see is curiosity, welcoming, and directing awareness so that filtered source starts arising. And the filtering source in me will awaken me more, so there's more source in me that works through Patty, not Patty welcoming the source, but the source, Patty's less and the source is more, you know.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
Go ahead, Jeff, sorry.
No, I'm just saying that as you offer less resistance to this whole current, then the love comes in. Yeah, beautiful. I would say that's the shortest path right there.
Go for it, you know.
Yeah.
Let the river flow you, but always keep your eye on the source of the river.
Yeah, exactly. Beautiful. Well said.
Janet Jacobs, go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. I've lost the Zoom page somehow. My phone rang and it dropped. Okay, but the question I had is that I just want some more specific help with the differentiation between the veils that separate us from being present with Baba and the psychological problems or whatever they are that we have that are there. I mean, in a way, I've best maybe been under the misconception that both of those were considered like sanskaras. So yeah, that any help with that, I'd appreciate.
Well, say that again. I didn't quite.
Okay. Well, in the end part of what we read, you know, where Darwin's talking about, it's not about getting rid of your psychological problems and just making a life that, quote unquote, you know, like feels good, sort of, but that we want to help clear away the veils that are between us and Baba. Am I correct in interpreting what he said? Okay.
Yeah.
So my question is how to differentiate between those two things. Because in my own mind, somehow I had put them both kind of in the same bucket of sanskaras themselves.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to put this to anybody else out there that wants to respond to her question. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to say something about it, because I mean, I'm a little uncomfortable with how this is phrased here about the psychological, in contrast to the psychological work, as if the psychological work is inherent. And I know he doesn't say this, but it's easy to, I think, read it as to say that inherently psychological work is about making yourself comfortable with your own given sanskaras. Because that's not true of most of the psychological work I've done personally and that I know of. Most of it really is about becoming aware of the samskaric patterns and then releasing those so that they stop being veils and they stop being patterns that drive and drive more separation. So I think that's the concept of psychological work being about coming to a point of comfort with your own sanskaras is a pretty dated notion of psychological work. And even if you go back to Baba's writings in the discourses, Baba talks about psychology in terms of saying psychology has done a lot to understand the source of conflicts within people's subconscious or unconscious, but it's done very little to provide the source of inspiration. Well, that was said back in the 30s. And since then, there's a whole field of transpersonal psychology that's become very widespread and become very integrated into much psychology and psychological practice that really is more about removing veils than it is about trying to sort of justify one's own sanskaras and sort of, find a point of comfort with them. So I guess I'm a little comfort with a sense of polarization here between psychological work and veil removal.
Yeah, very good. I mean, I think part of drawing closer to Baba requires a certain amount of psychological work as well as emphasizing the positive things in us and going with that. Exactly what you said.
Oh, good. Finally, I'm back.
What's that?
I'm fine. I mean, I've been off Zoom for quite a while, but I've been able to hear what you're saying. Anyway, sorry. I'm just saying I'm back. I can see everybody again.
Yeah. Did you get a sense of that from Daniel?
Yes, that helped me a lot, Daniel, because it sort of, I thought that I was totally had a misconception. And now I mean, because that's the way I had kind of experienced it myself, as I clear away say fears that hold me back, right? Those feel like they're also veils. Those are like sanskaric veils that keep me. How can I feel Baba's love and be an expression of that if I'm couched in fear and anxiety? And so yeah, to me there's more of a meshing of those than what I understood to have read there. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Excellent. Yeah.
Jim Whedon, you've had your hand up a very long time. I'm sorry.
Okay. Great discussion. Just kind of, this idea, that Darwin brought up that we shouldn't kind of deny our own bigness really strikes a chord with me also. And I think, it reminds me of something that Baba said about the difference between modesty and humility, right? To beware of false modesty. And the humility is something entirely different from modesty. It's what happens when those veils are lifted and we're more in tune with the infinite and with our own real selves. For me, that not deny the bigness. It's probably different for everyone, but for me, it's about speaking up rather than kind of holding it in. And I remember arriving at Baba Center once a few years ago. I remember I was in the lake cabin, which I dearly love that place. And a voice, not a voice, kind of I don't hear voices, but a kind of an inner message. It was very clear, and it said, "Speak the truth." I really resonated with that. It's like, don't be afraid to speak the truth, right? Don't be. If it's real, it's okay to be authentic, and not hold it back. So I think maybe that's what that means for me, what Darwin was talking about.
Yeah, good. Yeah, kind of finding the divine side of that, of a self-assertion, rather than being kind of a shrinking violet, coming forward. It's not ego, you're asserting the truth as you see it. Yeah. And yeah.
Stuart Baker.
Yeah, thank you. Just having a couple of thoughts. Along with what the lady said, I think in answer to her own question, I think there is a blending. And this is subtle stuff. And I think it's not absolutely black and white. Oh, this is my ego. This isn't. You know, this is more inspired. And just along with what Daniel brought up, I think we have to bear in mind the day and age of Darwin when he was, you know, Jeff knows better about when he actually wrote this, but his experience with Baba was more in an earlier time, and the field of psychology, I think, was more, as Daniel did, more in digging up the hindrances and not offering too much growth from there, you know.
Yeah. No, that exactly. Yeah, all this is like you say. It's very. It's hard to articulate this because there are nuances there that the English language just doesn't quite have the words for. Yeah.
Jack, you had your hand up?
Yeah. I'd like to come in from center field on this. Baba once said, if God needs to be proven, then God is not worthy of being God. And human beings are always trying to prove themselves. And my feeling, and the result of, thank God, the last 50 years of trying to repeat his name as often as I can, to me, there's nothing that we need to prove or even understand. Again, I follow Erich's statement that understanding has no meaning, although I find myself always trying to do something, whatever it is, and I found a tremendous contentment in just accepting myself as who I am at the moment I am. No feelings of badness, if you want to call it that, of the past, and no concern about the future other than to accept what's coming as it comes.
Yeah.
That's what I want to say.
Yeah, very good. I'll just insert one little story here. When I was young in India, and I was with Mara, and Mara said that when Baba took them up to Seclusion Hill, she had such a fear of heights that she had to kind of crawl on her knees to get up to the summit. And I thought, oh my God, she's been all these years with Baba and she hasn't overcome fear. But Mara didn't have a problem with that. She accepted that limitation. She wasn't like embarrassed that she had, you know, a fear of heights. She could accept who she was. And there was a great, you know, that's that contentment that you're talking about. It made a deep impression on me. I could tell the fact that she was shy, the fact that she had these various seemingly human limitations weren't limitations. You know, in accepting herself, she was whole. She wasn't trying to improve, involved in self-improvement. She accepted herself in its entirety. Quite a beautiful thing.
Cindy.
So, hey, are we going to go on to this next?
We've still got hands up.
Okay.
Yes, Cindy, go ahead.
Yeah, You know, when I read this, when Darwin says this is in contrast to the psychological work of trying to get rid of our painful samskara patterns, to me, I don't see any conflict with this in psychology, because I think that what Darwin is, the process that Darwin is talking about here is the process of grace. And, you know, I've had the experience of doing just this, you know, going through the process of therapy and trying to get through those barriers to basically finding God. And there is a process there, and my own process has been a transpersonal process. But then there's the experience of just feeling overwhelmed with the samskaric feelings and then giving it to Baba, and then it just melts away and there's no process. And for me, that's grace. That's Baba's grace coming to me and saying, okay, here you are. You know, this is what's real. And so there's, I think both are true, but what Darwin is saying here is exactly what we were saying at the beginning, what Jeff was saying. Go for the big picture, go for the bigness, go for the grace, essentially.
Yeah.
And I think that's all I have to say.
Darwin used to say, the deeper the feeling, the deeper the healing. Darwin used to say that.
Right.
So getting in touch with these things and giving them to Baba opens us up to a real healing, like you said.
Lisa, Brandy.
Hi. I'm loving this discussion. It's great. And it ties in wonderfully with something that I actually just got from India yesterday. We got a little thank you in the mail for a donation from Rose Mystery. And this picture of Baba is on the front, which I love. Yeah. And on the back was a quote of Baba's that I had never heard before. And I think it ties in beautifully with this paragraph that we all just read. And something that Jim Whedon said about speaking the truth. So the quote, and it's from Baba, says, "You win the right to tell others what you first accept in letter and spirit for yourself. Show outwardly what you have won inwardly."
Beautiful. Read it once again. Yeah.
I will. "You win the right to tell others what you first accept in letter and spirit for yourself. Show outwardly what you have won inwardly." So to me, it kind of ties in with that, that sense of the bigness, you know, that it's not the big ego thing. It's just that you're experiencing getting out of the way. It's okay to communicate that.
Yeah. And as a singer, you know the importance of getting out of the way so that the music comes through you rather than from you.
Exceptionally hard to do.
Yeah. But it's a great challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Paul Fusco.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. This is like awesome. To Jack and Cindy's point, for me, you know, as an Italian kid, 16 years old, growing up in the Bronx, and being with Baba, and I can tell you, it's been 40 odd years, and every time I try to figure out whatever that is, patterns, whether it's, you know, whether I think I've overcome this, that, or the other thing, all it does is leads me into another spiral. And then when I say to myself, whoa, wait, the effort is not figuring out my samskaric patterns. For me, I'm talking about me personally. The effort is to remember Baba in these things. the effort for me is no matter what happens, whether I'm robbing a bank or I'm helping a poor man in the street, that it's all in Baba and it's Baba. And once that happens, that's when things get relinquished. Not anything literally on my part, but in remembering Baba in all things, then the grace comes. It's as if it had no choice, right? Because it is. And so anytime I try to figure it out, all I do is get deeper. They say, how do you stop digging a hole? You know, getting deeper in the hole, just stop digging. Right. Anyway, I just want to that's what Jack and what's my attention. Thank you.
Catherine Cox also had her hand up.
I do. Let's just a minute. Let me mute or, oh, you did. You got me on now. This is just appropriate, only it's from what we were talking about earlier, but I gather it might work. I went and there's a nice quote that Baba had in, it's quoting Baba in Mara Meher, and it's volume 2. So I just wanted to read this. It's short, but it's talking about the bigness and smallness. Now, what is the lower self? That which makes you think you are small, that which makes you feel you are not satisfied, happy, that which makes others see you as small. So this meaning of going against the lower self is to transform this in quite the opposite direction. Be that which makes you look big and makes others see you as big. Remain pleased and contented, happy and satisfied. When you are displeased, unhappy, or upset and moody, it's your lower self asserting itself.
Wow, great quote.
Okay, page 87, Mara Meher, volume 2. Okay.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you, Baba, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, that's all the hands up. Is there anybody else? Paul Di Stefano.
Yes.
There's actually a digital way to raise your hand. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead, though.
Last time we were at the Circle of Friends, I happened to bring up the fact that I read Eckhart Tolle's book, and I'm just finishing his second book. And I would recommend that if Jack hasn't read it, that's a perfect book to answer his questions about living in the now, which is the name of his first book, and not live in the past because you can't change the past. And I didn't write it down, but Jeff has got a great cliche that he uses with that one. And then you don't know about the future because you don't know if you're going to be here tomorrow. So you got to live today and live it to the best and be thankful for what you've got each day. And it's very hard to do, and I'm trying real hard to do that, to not think about the past or think about the future, but I'm working on it. And what's that cliche you use, Jeff?
Well, there were two of them. One is give up all hope of a better past.
Right.
And then there's Yogi Berra, the future just ain't what it used to be.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
The first one is.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
So if we're ready to move on?
Yeah. Cloudy weather within.
Chitcher, can you read?
Okay. Can you hear me? Yep.
Yes.
Until we wake up to the awareness that we must, excuse me. Oh, well, can't find them. That's all right. Until we wake up to the awareness that we must make some efforts to get free of our sanskaric bindings, we remain very busy continuously making veils over our consciousness. And then we wonder where the cloudiness we experience comes from and why we do not have insight. As Meher Baba explained so clearly, sanskaras are weaknesses or bindings, and sanskaric veils are obstacles on the path to our spiritual unfoldment. They cloud our consciousness so that we are unable to see clearly at inner levels, and they keep us from experiencing God within. Of course, one can only vaguely generalize about sanskaric veils. They would differ in detail with each individual and be peculiar to one's own distorted, ignorant inner consciousness. Most of the veils or impressions that we have absorbed and woven into sanskaric patterns are created by the wanting machine of our desire nature, which is expressed mainly in the form of lust, greed, anger, selfishness, jealousy, a sense of aloofness, pride, and egoism in any form. Other veils are created by our many misconceptions and our false sense of limitation. Wow. Oh. Lisa says that quote wasn't in the book. Oh, well. All right. Okay, never mind. Yeah.
Yeah, anyone have something to chime in with? I mean, I always like Darwin have coined this phrase, the wanting machine. It's very descriptive, and it serves for a lot of things. Anyone have anything to comment on this subchapter?
Looks like we're good to go on to the next.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to randomly pick Kathy Scullin to read.
Oh, okay. Alrighty. Excuses. Dispelling the veils over our consciousness is subjective work, and my understanding from your Baba is that the path for each of us lies through our own sanskaric veils and requires personal efforts. To hold to the belief that the clearing out of those veils will occur on its own over time without our making efforts is to postpone our freedom. We find all kinds of excuses for preserving our own little desire, nature, and ego. Most people want to play an illusion and have their inner freedom too. We want a sense of spiritual protection and guidance, but we develop a philosophy of life that includes and accommodates our weaknesses. Further, we do not realize that those weaknesses, we think they are simply attributes of gross consciousness. Okay, we don't think of them as weaknesses. We think of them as simply attributes of gross consciousness. So when it comes to giving up all these veils, people tend to rationalize. Is it really time for us to do that? Is it really necessary? Does Baba mean for all of us to do that? Or just his closest Eastern disciples?
The beautiful thing that I've found is that Baba not only writes these truths, but he gives us the inspiration to go for that deeper experience. You know, I mean, there are books all over the world that write all about this, but when you get connected with Baba, he gives you the inspiration, the enthusiasm to go forward to a deeper place. And that enthusiasm, in the process of enthusiasm, you learn a lot of things about how to proceed. But any comments from anybody? Any questions?
I don't see any hands up, so if we're ready. Oh, Patty. I forget your last name, Patty.
Patty Curtis.
Okay. Curtis, yes.
Yes. Am I unmuted? No.
No, we can hear you.
Great. The only thing I thought, just what came to my mind about, does Baba mean for all of us to do that? Or just his closest Eastern disciples? Well, with this whole event that is happening, I really thought to myself when that was said is, really? I didn't think we'd have to do this in our lifetime, have all this isolation and go so deep and have all this happen. And here it is. this extraordinary opportunity to awaken. And it seems that it's happening in our lifetime. I thought maybe I was going to have a lot of lifetimes to see about. I didn't think it would be quite as constricted and confined for us to have to go deep now. I was kind of thinking I could play out my little life and keep having fun playing a lot of ping pong, you know. So, but I see a lot of humor in what was written right there is all I'm really saying.
Yeah, good.
And right now, you know.
Yeah.
Because it is forcing higher awareness and an awakening to real truth and real connectedness. It's really, to me, it's such a divine gift from him again.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Susan C.
Can you hear me? Wait.
Yes.
Hi, I'm joining you from Boston, Massachusetts. This is my first time, and thank you for letting me be here. And also, the video on my computer doesn't work, and I'm waiting for a webcam. I find myself resisting the idea of effort. And I remember Bao saying more than once, many times, whether you want it or you don't want it, you will get it. And I often think about that I'm really glad to know that, because I'm really not sure that I want it, because I like being in the world. And I also resist the idea that wanting is bad. I remember I listened to Phyllis Frederick's CD about death, and I remember her saying that one of the impulses for being reborn is because you have these desires that need to express themselves in the world. And so it seems to me that suppressing any kind of wanting or desire is going to keep you from expending your sanskaras and keep you from moving through and doing the things that you need to do to express what needs to be expressed in you. And I mean, I guess it's probably that some wantings are good and some aren't, but it isn't always so easy to figure it out. But just saying wanting is bad really doesn't seem like a good thing to me. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, Susan, nice to hear from you. Boston.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I say, it's very difficult to, the English language is hard to see all the nuances. Wanting, I mean, there are, if you want anything, Baba says, want me, you know, want to be free. And what might look like a binding want might be the very thing that liberates you, you know? So it's very hard to write and cover all of the situations without without limiting. But if, you know, if we want love and we keep striving to be loving, that's a different kind of want, and it draws us closer. But
thank you.
Yeah,
I agree.
All right.
Paula Roper, go ahead.
How's that?
Yep, that's good.
Okay. Well, I think I'm kind of lazy, but when I was in India at Baba Samadhi, I said to Baba, will you please just take it? Will you please just take it all? Well, like giving him a big trash bag, you know? And inside myself, I heard him say, yes, I will. I will do that. But then he said, but you have to know what you're giving me. And that was kind of, I was like, oh, darn.
Yeah.
But anyway, so, but also it's like, I don't know that I'm smart enough to know what I'm giving him. And I definitely need his help and his grace. I need him to shine the flashlight or show me, or I really am in his hands because I don't know what I'm doing. So it's like, you know, he says, remember me and take my name and try to love me. And that's kind of all I know, you know. I think I'm a little bit simple that way, but it's like, I don't know what all this stuff is from all these lifetimes and all that. So then you watch him, and he does. He allows things to happen that you learn and grow and figure things out a little bit. But anyway, that was very sweet of him to say, yeah, but you have to know what you're giving me.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I say, that goes back to what Darwin used to say, you can't heal what you don't feel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so we have to kind of get in touch with, I mean, aware of that anxiety that's in us. Be aware of it in order, before giving it to Bob.
Well, those things, you know, it's not hard for me to be aware of it, but I don't know where it came from. And I don't know how to find where it came from.
Yeah. And you may not even need to know. You just give it to him, hold it out to him, because Darwin used to say that Baba's being is impressionless. So whatever impressions you give of deep anxiety or something, they go to him and they're dissolved. But there's a layer behind it that looks just like the one you gave him. You be prepared, and then you give that layer. But any giving to Baba it deletes that portion that we give him. But we may not have to go and try to find out where this all came from. You know, we might have to go to other lifetimes to find out why we are have problems with authority, say, or we're, you know, but we can give the problem we have with authority to him as it comes up in this lifetime, bit by bit.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of what Mani said about it's never a going backwards, it's always a going forwards with Baba.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Adrian, go ahead.
Hi. So the first thing that comes to me when we're talking about wanting and desire is, I think one of the tricks of this predicament is learning how to want what Baba wants for us. We'll start my video. Okay. I think that like the burden of desire is, in my experience so far, it's not in like just wanting for wanting's sake. It's like wanting something or things or the fulfillment of something when actually Baba doesn't want that for you, doesn't want that for me. So then pouring my desire towards the material manifestation of whatever the thing is I'm desiring, and then being in a state of kind of constant frustration, anger, bitterness, or whatever, the things that happen when we don't get what we want. And I actually think that it isn't about just not wanting and, you know, let me just be completely detached and want nothing. It's just, it's actually like a gift from Baba to say, like, learn how to want me, because everything else is not real. So you're going to keep wanting all this stuff and you'll never be happy. The only thing that will ever fulfill your happiness is wanting me and then getting me. That's it. And sometimes we're really lucky and we want something that's really cool and fun, and Baba wants that for us. Like maybe we want to have a child, and then Baba says, okay, you can have a child, or you want to get married, and then, you know, things like that, or you want to whatever, go for a walk, and Baba says, that's a great idea, let's go. But like there are so many times when that isn't the case, and I think that's where the humility comes in. And it's not about, oh, poor me, I don't get what I want. It's lucky me, I have the ability to listen to Baba telling me, stop wanting that. Listen to me. Let me tell you what you want. you want this. And to be able to be big, like Darwin's suggesting, be big enough to let Baba dictate and guide our lives. Like, be bigger than our own small, senscarically motivated desire. It's just, I just want to fulfill these desires. I've been coming here for lifetimes trying to get a record deal. I've been coming here for lifetimes trying to be the president of the world. Like, you know, that's like what keeps us coming and spiraling and being addicted to it. But at a certain point, when we're Baba lovers, and it's like, what do you really want? You want me or you want that? And then Mani has that thing too, that she says, like, you can have it your way or Baba's way, but you can't have it both ways. That just gives me so much hope. Like, right, it's either his way or I'm screwed, because I don't really want to live for me. I want to live for him. I just don't know totally how to do it. And that is what I have to say about that.
Yeah, beautiful. That's one of our big challenges right there. When we don't get what we had our heart set on, we're forced to grow. Yeah. Beautiful. Anything
Elizabeth.
else?
Yeah, Elizabeth, go ahead.
Yes, it sounds like actually after hearing a couple people talk that we're talking about two different things. One is about desiring and what that's about, and the other is about wanting, which is something different. And when I first was going to reply, it was to the person who was talking about desires and how we limit our desires. And there's a whole discourse on that. And it talks about, and I can't remember which one it comes from, maybe Dan or somebody else knows, but it's that when we have a desire, it can be active, but over time, as we're thinking more and more about Baba, we may have the thought, but we don't put it into action. So the discourse goes on to explain how over time these desires are mitigated by our not acting on them, whether it's a desire to express anger, a desire to do something we know is not good for us, whatever it might be. So, but the wanting part that people seem to be talking about now sounds a little different. Almost like something goal-oriented that we strive for in our lives that is related more to the false self and really is submerged in Maya as opposed to Baba or God or what is true.
Yeah. That's another whole aspect of this. Well said. Anyone else out there?
Yes, Alan.
Yeah, so I was recently listening to Eric talk about just a short little snippet on Mandali Hall talks or something like that. And he said that Baba told him there was the difference between I want, I wish, and I will you to do these things. And I thought that was interesting. So when he said something like, I want you to take care of your health, then or I would like you to, it's something like, yeah, you sort of have a lot of choice and room to make a lot of mistakes there. And you can go in and out of that. And whether you do it or not, well, it's up to you. But I wish for you to do this. Like, I wish for you to be kind to other, this person in your neighborhood or whatever. It's like, it's a mixture of grace and you're efforting to do that and to make it happen. But you can still kind of slide off of not doing that at all if you choose to do that. And then there's I will you to, and you have absolutely no choice in the matter. It's going to happen. It's already written. I mean, everything's already written, but you are definitely, he's just letting you know. He gives you the grace to know. And I just want to read this quote by Baba. He says, "Be patient. I shall take you blindfolded, and I shall give you the inner strength to withstand the ups and downs of your mind and the ups and downs of the events of the world that have impact on your mind. Rely on me only, and I shall do your work. That's from Just to Love Him, page 69.
Wow.
Yeah, so.
That Adi's? Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I mean, his book. But anyway, beautiful quote. And brings this all before us in a different way. Yeah. Hey, the next chapter
Daniel,
is...
sorry, Daniel Stone has his hand up.
Yeah.
This seems like a really important conversation. And I thought there were things said here about, what does it mean to want, or, and is wanting a bad thing? And, what's the difference in wanting and Baba, just giving it to Baba? And, it just brings me back to the prayer of repentance. And just, if you'll allow me just to say a few words about the prayer of repentance, because the prayer of repentance, the last line in the prayer of repentance is, forgive us for our constant failures to think, speak, and act according and the last word is generally translated as will. It's actually, and Erich has said this and I've been with Erich a couple of times when he pointed it out, that the word that actually Baba gave when he gave out the prayer of repentance for that last word actually could have just as easily been translated as wish rather than will. And and Erich said he was always troubled by the prayer and when it was translated as will, because Baba said, in essence, not a leaf falls, but by my will. And so how could we fail to think and speak and act according to his will if everything happens according to his will? But it is true that it is possible and very, very easy to think, speak, and act in a way that is not according to Baba's wish. And so that's what the prayer is about. It's according to Erich, and I see it that way too. It's about how do we align ourselves with Baba's wish. And Baba's wish to me is an ongoing, what he said are constant failures. Well, that means in every moment in life, we're constantly given the opportunity to tune into Baba, to say, Baba, what's your wish in this situation? And it doesn't always mean, self-abnegation and self, not asking for not going for a recording contract, back to what Adrian said, or not going for this or that. I mean, Baba could be wishing all kinds of things without having a preconceived notion about what that is, and simply going in with a real, spirit of inquiry and openness to Baba, to say, Baba, what is your wish for me in regards to this? And trying to really learn how to, for me, it's been one of my major lessons and learnings with Baba, has been how to refine my both commitment to doing that and my persistence in doing it and my ability to do it, and just making that the cornerstone. So I just want to sort of say, to me, that's a substitute for the wanting that exists outside of that. The wanting outside of that doesn't bring us into relationship with Baba, but the wanting, when we take our wanting and say, well, Baba, I know I want this, but what's your wish with regard to it? And finding the answer to that, and then following that. That's how I resolve this question.
Yeah, Daniel, very, very well put. Excellent. I agree. I think Baba. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, Paula Roper has her hand up.
Yeah, I'll be real quick. This is kind of for Adrian too. Over the years, what I've noticed, we really do belong to Baba. We're his, and we want to love him more and more, and we want to remember him all the time. And there have been times when I thought I couldn't figure out what to do, so I made up my mind once I was going to move somewhere, and if he doesn't want it, it was the best I could do at the time, but he really didn't want it, because I was in my car and he appeared to me really, really big, and he was smiling and he was shaking his head no. And I got from San Diego to Gila Bend, and I argued with him the whole way. And I said, but Baba, you know, and he just kept doing that, you know. And finally I turned around because I was not supposed to move to Flagstaff, Arizona at that particular time. And, you know, and then it's like, you know, my house burned down, and there's all kinds of things that happen that it's like, then you see, well, we needed a new roof, and, you know, and we had our insurance paid, things like that. So you see how sometimes we want something and we can go for it, but if Baba's always protecting us, I really believe that. And if he doesn't want it to happen, if he needs to protect us in that way, he'll keep us from falling over a cliff. And because he sees where that might take us. So anyway,
Yeah.
But that's what I've experienced in my life, is if he really doesn't want something and I'm so hard-headed I can't figure it out, he'll hit me over the head with it.
Yeah. Great example. We've all had some experiences of that.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah.
I just need to know why you were looking directly at me when you were talking about people who had a problem with authority.
Uh-oh. No. I think we all do, especially worldly authority.
You were looking right at me, though.
Oh, really? No, I was sorry about that.
Love you, brother.
Yeah. Any other comments?
I could say something.
Yeah.
So, Jay Baba, great discussion. I just going way back earlier, I wanted to say how much I loved basically what I took out of the whole thing of the veils and the real self is that by doing whatever way we do it, the work on our veils, giving them to Baba, allows a space to open. And that word space means a lot to me in my life. I'm always trying to notice the space before I get angry so that I won't get angry. Or so many moments that the spaciousness allows me to be. So, and you said to choose love. And I just want to take that with me as I go, that I love that in that moment of space, all I need to do is choose love, and it seems so simple.
Yeah, we get angry when there's no space. You know, we just, our awareness and our anger are kind of one and the same. But yeah, if we can get some, like Darwin said, internal space, inner space, we have a little bit of choice in doing his wish, which is the loving thing to do, as opposed to the sanskaric thing.
And then the luminous sea of light, of love, of bliss can come into that space.
Beautiful. Yep.
Well, I didn't write that.
Yeah, I know. Anyone else have any
yes,
comments?
Damien, go ahead.
Okay. I just really appreciate people sharing very clearly and openly from their heart. I'm just really moved by this whole discussion, and as well as some of the incredible quotes that people read. And I just really, really appreciate it, especially at this time where we're more disconnected. But I think in the inner sense, we are very much connected. And this whole discussion really brings that forward. And I'm just very moved by hearing and sharing. So thank you all for sharing.
Yeah. Hey, you know, what you said, Damien, reminds me of something that Daniel Stone shared with us about Dick Gregory. Can you mention that, Daniel?
Dick Gregory. Remind me.
Remember what Dick Anthony said
Dick Anthony.
to...
Dick Anthony.
Yeah.
Dick Gregory's
sorry. sorry.
Somebody should tell Dick Anthony he was just twinned with Dick Gregory.
Yeah.
So this is something that Dick Anthony. Dick Anthony's a very long time Bible lover. He lives in the Bay Area. Had personal communication with Baba. He's a social psychologist and very, very bright, interesting guy. Co-authored a book with Ken Wilber. And he was telling me that he had a conversation with Erich in which he said to Erich, Erich, it seems to me, I'm quoting Dick, it seems to me that there are 3 different phases that happen during the avatar period. The first is the phase when the avatar is physically present, where the charge is the greatest. Then the second period is after the avatar drops his physical form, but his close disciples, Mandali, are present. And the charge is still very much there, but it's also largely conveyed through the Mandali or something like that. And he said the third phase is when all the Mandali are gone. And he said that's the phase when there is where historically when the avatars come, that's been where the charge has gotten lost or gotten diminished so much, and that other things start to take over, like ritualization and rigidification and hierarchicalization, all that kind of stuff that goes on.
Yeah.
Religion and rigidity. And the charge, the charm of it is gone. And so he said to Erich, given this, Erich said, yes, there's truth to that. And so Dick said, well, so what do we do about that? And Erich, he said, got very severe with him. And he said that Baba had been very severe about this point, that this should not happen in the case of his advent. And so Dick said, okay, fine, it shouldn't happen, but how do we keep it from happening? And Erich said to him, by gathering in small groups to share your mystical experiences with one another is how you keep this from happening. Now, I was totally shocked when I heard this, because I've never heard any of the Mandali talk about mystical experiences in relationship to Baba or encourage anything like that. And so I really queried Dick very closely on the use of that term, and he held to it. He said that was actually the word that Erich used. So that's the story.
Which back in the early 70s, the phrase sharing your inner life with Baba wasn't probably as known as it is, but kind of what we're doing here is kind of sharing our inner life with Baba. And you can't make a religion out of it, or a rigidity or a dogma or a doctrine out of it, because everybody's coming at this from such a different direction. And that's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
And who could ever have imagined this very forum, just the possibility of such a thing 30 years ago? I mean, this is such a gift. I mean, not only the circumstances which bring us together here, but the technology which permits it. Quite remarkable.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, I think this is a real gift. I'm just so fortunate to be part of this experience, and thank everybody for being here together and being so willing to share of themselves.
Yeah. I was thinking, let's have a few moments of silence.
Wait, Jeff, there's a few hands up. Shall we finish that first?
Yeah.
Hugh Flick, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to pick up sort of way to end this, something that Paul Fusco said and something that Paula said in terms of remembering God, remembering Baba. And it's basically comes down to giving things, turning things over to Baba. And I can remember Darwin describing the act of surrendering to Baba. And that was only doing things that you would think, speak, and do in Baba's presence.
Yep.
It's kind of because of what Daniel said about Dick Anthony, which I heard him say quite a while back, that I think it's so wonderful to be able to get people's stories, because they're all mystical, it seems to me, when I hear them. You know, we talked about doing them on this format now if people want to get together and tell their story. By the way, Tom doesn't want to do it, just so you know, on this. I guess if people, you know, want to do it, they should let Angela know or let me know if we want to keep getting people's stories told through Zoom.
Yeah.
But I think that I love that I had heard that, and I think it just makes so much sense to my heart that that's the way to keep it from getting rigid, or the stories are just so valuable. That's all. Thanks. Thank you for all of this.
Okay.
Jai Baba. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Wonderful to be with all of you. It's a thrill. And I can't wait until the center opens up and you'll come barreling in on the center roads to your cabin.